Any senator now has the power to give money to an organization, a student organization, or even to individual senators as long as a majority of the senators vote on it.
Senator Jody Dahmer believes this precedent could allow individual organizations around campus to benefit more than others. Dahmer has gone as far as using the word corruption when describing the possible outcomes of this bill. Senator Zach Jones, who mainly wrote the bill, disagrees.
To allocate funding to an organization, it has to make it through the Senate body, which requires a majority vote. And then it has to make it through the executive cabinet, which requires a majority vote. So if they found this as a corrupt measure, then they have the right to vote it down.
When we voted on something that's controversial, like giving discretionary funding to different organizations, 8 people abstained.
Senator Zach Jones brought 12 to 15 guests into the Senate chamber the day the bill was voted on, filling up a whole back row. This is a fair tactic. However, Senator Jody Dahmer believes this coerced one too many senators into abstaining from voting on the bill. But Senator Joe Hunter says he had his own reasons for voting yes.
The reason I voted to have that money sent to the African Student Union during that vote is because they raised what I considered a legitimate concern, and I believe that money would have been better spent there than absolved or put into some hole in the university.
Jones wanted to lend a helping hand to international students.
African Student Union is an organization that's made up and led by international students. I've made it a point to empower international students any way I can through Student Government Association. They bring an essential component to our campus.
Dahmer would prefer to use the funds for general campus betterment. And as he feared, sometimes there just isn't enough money or space for all individual organizations. Professor Ben LaPoe's request for funding was not accepted, even though his organization also represents possible international students.
I advise a student group called the Multicultural Journalists. I received an email that the deadline for requesting organizational aid from SJ was next week, right? So I turned it in, I think that day before the time that it was supposed to be due. I think their deadline was 4 p.m. I turned it in at like noon, but they weren't taking anymore. They said that they had received too many already.
It seems as if everyone's trying to take steps in the right direction to help, but all those steps happen to land on someone else's toes. Both Jones and Dahmer have brought in guests to their open meetings in SGA. One tried to prove there was a purpose to give an individual organization discretionary funding. The other challenged the decision-making of the Senate.
This is tuition money that's being used for various things, and you want to be sure that you're using it for the right purposes.
The money that we gave them was came from a discretionary fund, which means it's used at the Senate's discretion. If you're in an elected position, then that comes with a certain amount of responsibility and a certain amount of authority and decision-making. And you have to steward that responsibility in a good way and in a responsible way.
Reporting for News Channel 12, I'm Michael Squire.